So, good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to be here with you. Let's wait for everyone to pick up the headphones. Okay. So, as I said, it is a pleasure to be with you today. Objective of this presentation is not a marketing of a product. Idea is to share with you the most interesting attacks that has happened in the previous few months, and I can explain the general concept of technology which has gathered this information. So just for the beginning, for you to get a feeling about number of events in the sense of the different kind of attacks happening every second. So now you're watching our live map of ongoing attacks. All these red dots that you can see are the attackers that has performed the attack against our customers in previous 10 minutes, and every 10 seconds you have an update what has happened. For example, waiting for the new update. So in the previous 10 seconds we had attacks coming from US, then from Germany, Netherlands, US again, and US again, from those 5 different IPs on that one. So the concept that we are using is gathering data in real time about the ongoing attacks, and using this information then you can apply that information for the self-learning systems, which will be then capable of preventing that kind of event again in real time. We have some mix of technologies, incremental AI and so on, but I don't want to waste your time on marketing or the demonstration. So using this system, we have collected some interesting information about the attacks that has been happening in the last few months. Waiting for the first slide. Okay, it should be probably by me. Yes. So, because of the recent development in the geopolitics, we have a big challenge happening nowadays on that part. So, issue is that nowadays you have a specific groups and specific attack vectors which are happening against specific countries on that one. What does it mean? It means a high level of customization of the weapons and the attack vectors being used for attacking a specific nation. Therefore, if you purchase some commercial threat intelligence information, for example, let's say from US, it will not have information about who is specifically attacking Colombia, and opposite versa. Also, if you purchase that, let's say from China, whatever, they don't know all the exposures and all the attacks happening in this moment of time. That one. Why is that? Because if I am the bad guy, I would not shoot all around the world if I'm targeting Colombia. Of course, I will keep quiet myself, make a specific weapon for Colombia, and shoot straight to the point where it is. Right. So, first question is, what do you think? How many attacks are happening against Colombia on that one? We have done some small data gathering on that one. We had few so-called, we have that cyber clone traps, a patent that has been developed in US and Europe, that part. And we have collected around 6,000 attacks per each IP. Estimation based on the ChatGPT that there is around 200,000 IPs, which gives us some approximate number of what's that, around 1 billion attacks happening against Colombia on daily basis. So every day is about that one. Of course, there is variation in the sense it can rise a lot, it can go down, but this is some average number. Now, let's see specifically, this is information we have gathered just before coming here, so something like for a month period, from which countries the attacks were coming from on that one. So here you can see the top 10 countries. You can see the number of attacks, you can see the date when the data was collected, it was on the 23rd November. But I want to highlight these countries that you see. These are not enemy countries. Most of the attacks happening nowadays are coming from the so-called proxy systems. What does it mean in practice? I will purchase some system in US, paid by Bitcoin or a hacked one, and I will use the infrastructure from US to attack you. So I can stay behind, not being seen at all. This is another example of Colombia-specific data that can be found on the dark web. So here are some leaked credentials that has happened. You can see .gov.Colombia and specific passwords on that one. And this is very simple and easy to gather on that one. So if you just have access to the dark web, it's just by a few clicks and few arrangements, you can get this kind of information without any problem. It took me something like less than an hour to get this kind of information. Now, so as I mentioned before, the countries that you see attacking you directly based on the source IP addresses is not exactly the attacker. And I want to show you nowadays with the real life data exactly how it looks like in the sense of what is being attacked and how it is being attacked. So here you can see what we have gathered about the attacks against Colombia. So you can see some of the IPs. Please notice that 95, 173, 224, and so on. I assume this is coming from Peru and Brazil, but here I have to say, based on the attack vectors being used here, talking about these request texts, you can see get/index PHP and so on, and also you can see the user agent, meaning the agent that has been used for the attacks. These are naive guys, meaning they're not professionals on that one. They just grab a tool and shooting around and so on. So nothing that serious. You should not worry about that part. Who is attacking the IP that you see? As I mentioned, rented cloud, virtual machines, some containers on that one, compromised virtual machines as well, proxy job host being used a lot on that one, and also botnet controls being used on that one. So many different sources. When we check those IPs you have seen in the previous slide about the attack against Colombia, you can see those two IPs. And if you check, this is the, by the way, public website abuseip.db. Everyone can access it without any payment to be made. You can check every IP. And it says that this belongs, you can see here, belongs to Brazil and Peru. But what is very important, you see the datacamp.corporate.uk. What does it mean? It means that there is a company named Datacamp, which is obviously reselling, meaning hosting different kind of virtual machines. And the guy that was doing that one was just using the infrastructure of Datacamp for performing the attack. But as I mentioned before, those attackers that we have seen are naive attackers. They're not very proficient and they're not very advanced attackers. I want to show you some really, really advanced type of attacks that we have gathered in the last few months. So, first thing is about the zero-day attacks. What is a zero-day attack? First, to explain that part. A zero-day attack is something that still no one knows about it. Meaning, there is a vulnerability. For example, let's say there is vulnerability in this device. No one knows about that one, but they start attacks. And this is a really big problem because you have an unknown software vulnerability and you have protect against something which is unknown. So it's a big challenge, definitely, on that part. And also, based on the technology that we are using, incremental AI plus cyberclone traps and so on, I don't want to bother you on the product. If you're interested, we can have a talk separate to that one. We have gathered information about these kind of attacks. So this is the official Microsoft publishment about that vulnerability. It was a Microsoft SharePoint vulnerability. It has been published. You can see the very first version was on the 19th July, and then the update was on the 20th July. So that was the moment of time when the world knew about the Microsoft SharePoint vulnerability, and it was patch was available to protect against that. But the real life is something else. So here you can see a screenshot from our platform, that part. What is very important for you is that specific request, you can see here underscore layout settings and so on. This is a specific Microsoft SharePoint URL. And the best part of the screenshot is this one. You can see the date is on the 5th June, the same thing there. What does it mean? It means that we had catched the attack against Microsoft SharePoint around, 45 days before it was officially announced that there is a problem with Microsoft SharePoint. And with this information here, you get not only about who is the attacker IP, but you can see all additional information like destination port, like user agent, and so on. By the way, this can be faked a lot, that one. In this specific case, the guy was going around to perform the attack as much as possible. He was shooting here our specific customer using the smart power grid systems in the world. Going further on, that was the advance in the sense of amount of time before a vulnerability was known on that one. The second thing is that you nowadays have really advanced attackers which are doing really nice way of hiding behind the legally, known and trusted entities. So, regarding that part, I mentioned, let me skip on that part. Here is another example also about the SharePoint attack. Now, you can see again the underscore layouts and so on, that it is a SharePoint attack vector. Also, you can see the date. So this was 4 days after the very first attack attempt that was happening. But the interesting thing is that the source IP that this attack came from are the different. So this is not the same IP being seen on that one. And question is then, who is that and who is performing the attack? Are there multiple guys doing the attack or not? The owner of these three different IPs is who? Cloudflare. Again, you can just go for the IP ownership check. There are many different sites showing the ownership of the IPs. And all of them are belonging to the Cloudflare. Cloudflare is a huge international company providing the load balancing services plus many other services on that part. And now what would be your thinking? That Cloudflare is doing some attacks? Well, that makes no sense. What really was happening is this. So now we are looking at the same attack vectors you have seen before on the previous slide. Again, I will just remind you, underscore layout, meaning the SharePoint attack vector, on the 9th June, meaning 4 days after. But the crucial thing is in the headers that it was done. So he's shooting at the SharePoint, authenticate SPX, but what is very important is this part. In the header, there is information, Cloudflare, loops, and then it is saying a connecting IP is 82.102 and so on, that one. So what the guy was doing, the guy was a clever one, definitely. So he has established at the Cloudflare his domain name, and he has pointed in his domain name to the target, that one. So whoever, when he's accessing his website, in fact, Cloudflare is redirecting that one and with that attempt, redirecting the attack to the final target. So when you see on your system, it looks like it's a Cloudflare doing the attack, but it's not like that. It's just about some, I don't know how to say it, customization and hacking so he can hide himself behind a huge infrastructure and doing the attack. Here you can see who has been attacking. We have been helping many countries across the world recently about handling the state-level attacks on that one. The Azerbaijan is one of them, and here you can see the Azer Telecom. Azer Telecom is the largest telecommunication company in Azerbaijan. They have been attacked. I don't know how much you're familiar with that. Azerbaijan was facing a huge number of the attacks recently. I think it was something like 3 months ago. They had to close the whole country because of so many attacks happening on that one, both from the outside and from the inside till the cleanup. We helped them in cleaning up, and that's how we got the benefit of providing them the services for the protection. So again, who is that? The IP. You see from the previous slide, let me just highlight. It is in the headers we can see 82.102.31.30, and the ownership is that Venus Business Communication Limited, and you can see that this IP has been reported many times, that it is acting as malicious, and the location of that IP, meaning the hosting company, is in US, in California. So the guy is proficient guy, he has his own infrastructure. He stopped doing for the very advanced type of attacks. He did not want to expose his known as a bad IP. He's hiding behind the Cloudflare to avoid that one, and then he's shooting very precisely against the target. But besides all these attack vectors that I have shown to you, from my personal perspective, this is the best guy, the best attacker. This attack has happened in Slovenia. Slovenia is the country in Europe, on that one. And look at his attack vectors. So the second one is the most interesting one. So again, you see the underscore layouts, meaning the Microsoft SharePoint attack vector. And then he says, thank you, defenders, for rapid response. So he's teasing them because he's doing the attack before the SharePoint was known, as he knows that they will be reading the logs, checking what's happening, and then teasing them for not being able to see and to prevent the attack. There are many other things I could talk about, but I think it's much better that you raise your questions and then we can go for a deeper dive. Is there an... Please? Can't.
Hi, Brad. Thank you for the presentation. The question is, right now, what do you think is the biggest threat for on a sovereign level for countries here in Latin America?
You're familiar with the geopolitical tensions happening, I assume. My hobby is geopolitics because of the cybersecurity on that one. And the recent developments with Venezuela and the challenges will be really rising the tensions because the cybersecurity attacks are the cheapest attacks that can be performed. And usually before any kind of the real war happening, they will shoot with different kind of the cyber attacks for the purpose of either disabling the infrastructure or making some good damage or making even the noise within the infrastructure too. So unfortunately, I think it will be expanded. The number of the attacks will be expanding in the following period. Maybe it makes sense just to explain the technology if there are no specific questions on that one. So how do we get this information? This is a crucial thing, the quality of the data. So the first thing is that very important, there are no false positives. Whatever we get, for sure, we guarantee that it is for sure true, meaning that it really happened on that part. We have developed a specific mathematical model. I don't know how much we're familiar with so-called Mealy's machine, that one, where we have proven that no matter of the complexity of the system that is to be cloned, we can make a very small clone with size of approximately 10 to 20 megabytes solely that can act exactly like the original native device. So, for example, if it is about HTTP server, you will have some complex server like SharePoint, or you might have a government website and so on. We guarantee that no matter the complexity of the website, we can shrink it down and it can run on very small virtual machine or very small devices. We run it even on the IoT devices, just for you to get a feeling of that one. So this is the first component of that one, being able to clone any kind of system. Second component is that we are gathering all this information in real time. We guarantee processing in less than 10 milliseconds, just for you to get a feeling of that part. And the last part, the best part, is about prevention. If you rely on people to see the alarm and then to react, there will always be a problem, meaning the delay, missing the information and so on. But what we have done is opposite. We have done it is self-learning based on this data, but also it is self-acting in the sense that, for example, we can feed all this data in real time to the firewalls. And here we are talking about something like 10,000 number of the IPs every second on that one. So continuously, as soon as someone touches our cyber clone trap anywhere, all our customers get information in less than 1 minute about this attack. The same thing can be done with DNS servers. The same thing can be done with web application firewalls and so many of them. But the best part, which is still not known, this is something that we got the award from Japanese government recently. We were in June in Japan, in Tokyo. We have developed a specific kind of firewall based on the incremental AI. Let me first explain what is the incremental AI. If you ask ChatGPT nowadays, what is the latest data it has been trained with, the ChatGPT will tell you it was a June 2024. Meaning the ChatGPT cannot have the most recent data in his knowledge. Question is why? There is mathematical problem named catastrophic forgetting, because when you have a training data set like that, and you have to add just some more additional information, it will forget the previous knowledge. So for that purpose, you have to do the full retraining from the previous data plus a new data on that one, and it takes time and hours. So even ChatGPT, which has unlimited number of resources, they cannot make it to do it on daily basis. We have resolved that problem, but for this specific area of the problem, incremental AI, there is a science paper being published at the UK AI magazine science journal. You can find that one, where we have proven that we can do the incremental AI, meaning every 3 to 5 seconds, and add on to the AI knowledge without forgetting the previous knowledge. Why it is important? Because that model then can be placed on every single IoT device, and then on the IoT device level, you can have a self-learning firewall, gathering data from all these traps in real time, updating the ML model, and then automatically preventing the most recent attacks, including the never seen before attacks, zero-day attacks on that one. Precision rate is about 99.9%. If someone is interested, we can share the science paper about that. Yes, please.
Hola, Vlad. Buen día. Muchas gracias por estar acá.
I'm waiting for the translation.
Gracias.
Apologize. That is the... Thanks. No.
Hola, Vlad. Buen día. Muchas gracias por estar acá. Soy Eddie Velázquez, director de la empresa Sequoia, tu partner aquí en Colombia. ¿Cuál sería la mayor ventaja estratégica que podría tener un país como Colombia por usar esta tecnología de AST? Y como segunda pregunta, ¿en dónde actualmente se está implementando ese tipo de tecnologías para la protección estratégica?
Yeah. So first regarding, thank you. Okay. So regarding the first part of the question, regarding Colombia and its interest for the protection, the most important thing is that you will be getting the threat information relevant to Colombia solely on that one. Meaning that you can see in real time who is specifically attacking Colombia, and you don't rely on any third parties if they will share information with you or they will not, and you will get it in real time. Even better is that you will get information who is attacking you from inside Colombia. Usually the bad guys will find some compromised host within your country and they will perform the attack. Therefore, what I'm saying is that with the cooperation of multiple companies within Colombia, talking about, for example, the telecommunication company like you have seen the one, maybe Ministry of Defense, some corporation as well, they can exchange information in real time, no specific configuration to be done or some complex systems to be deployed, and then at the national level you will establish a threat intelligence and even better threat prevention at the national level. So this is the first part, and we are willing to help on that part, definitely. The second part was, what was the second question? Please remind me, translator. Okay. My apologies. So recently, I can tell you in the last, let's say, 6 months, we have been inviting many different countries to help them in resolving the incidents. They had the large level of incidents when talking about the national level. For example, I have mentioned the Azerbaijan. They had really big issues on that one. It was specifically after the war between Azerbaijan and Georgia, I think, on that one. And it was a big challenge on that one. They had a lot of attacks coming, and we helped them in resolving that part. Let me give one example of the attacks they had. One of the most advanced attacks was happening against the bank, one of the largest banks in Azerbaijan. The guys were using the specific attack vector of the banking REST API calls. These are the API calls being used by the ATM machines, by the POS terminals and so on. So the guys knew exactly the attack vector. They knew the names of the employees, and they were performing the attack hidden behind the Cloudflare. That was interesting on that one. So meaning really shaped properly on that one. There is another ministry, unfortunately I cannot share the information from another country on that one. Also it was interesting, why is that? Because the tool, penetration tool, was used specifically for their environment. To be very precise, they are using the asset endpoint protection. The attacker has seen what version of the asset antivirus protection they are using. They have made a specific DLL and specific tool to inject that malicious DLL exactly the memory location where it can be injected within the asset itself. So imagine having the asset process, antivirus process, which is acting maliciously on that one. That's a disaster. And when you scan it with any tool, everything looks fine, everything is perfect, but in fact it's not like that. So if you're interested, I can share that information exactly how the ejection looks like on that part. Anyway, going backward, also in Asia Pacific, we had a lot of really advanced attacks happening. And my feeling is that now, because of the geopolitics, there is much more, regionalization between the countries. There is no global cooperation like was in the past, and every country has to focus on itself first, definitely. I should switch, I suppose.
La pregunta es si para poder que la aplicación funcione toca instalar un agente en los endpoints y si es más como una respuesta ofensiva de lo que ya está pasando.
You had really good questions in the previous session, so this is even better, I have to say. Not about the agent, but about the counter-attack. Regarding the agent, no, it's not. It's not about the agent. We have made it so it can be executed in a fully isolated environment. It can be either virtual machine or the IoT device. It can run even on the chip. You have, for example, 5G modules being used for the IoT devices. We place it in the chip. So it is between the device and the 5G communication. And then it is acting like a trap on that one. Still, if you want, we can embed that within the production system. And then it can work on that way. So it's more about tactics than the technology requirements. On the counter-attack, it is feasible. In the sense, let me give you one example. So usually they're using a typical tools for the attacks. For example, there are some Python scripts. I don't know if we see, I don't think we have that on the slides in the attack vectors, if we can see the tool being used. Yep, good one. Look at this one. So this guy was using a specific Python library for the URL access. Meaning, if that tool he's using is verbal for any reason, it can be this Python URL library, it can be, for example, the curl, wget, and so on, what kind of tools they're using anyway. If it is verbal, yes, then you could you can do the counter-attack in the sense of penetrating the system. Is it legal? It's up to you to decide, and you should do it. We don't do it.
Let me ask you the same question. In English is fine. In English is fine. Never mind. What's the relationship of your tool with the CM and with the SOC? Because before you mentioned that the information is very fast, right? And it doesn't need to go back and forth because it takes a lot of time. Maybe the information is already obsolete. So how is the functionality with the CM and with the SOC simultaneously?
Okay, let me compare the existing technology by default being used by most of them with what we are doing. So typical one nowadays uses SOAR. I assume you are familiar with that one. There is a problem with the SOAR. Problem with the SOAR is if you want to send 50,000 IPs at once to the firewall, it cannot process that one. Why is that? Because SOAR is based on the interactivity, meaning I will get some IPs, then I have to, let's say it's a Cisco. I have to establish the connection in logon, get the session token, then I will send some updates to configuration file, then I have to commit the configuration files and so on. And then it takes a lot of time, and usually we have done it many times. Usually firewall cannot respond so fast for a huge amount of data. So what we are doing is a bit different. Regarding the firewalls, those are thread feeds. All next generation firewalls now are supporting thread feeds. Usually people don't know about that one. For example, FortiGate supports thread feeds for the IP addresses, for the domain names, for file hashes on that one. Palo Alto supports also URLs as well. Cisco solo the IP addresses and so on. Anyway, thread feeds are the fastest one, and you can send huge amount of data. Regarding the CM integration, what we also do is we are sending all this information using the thread feeds and the attack to the CM as well, and then the CM can do the correlation in real time. So for example, if there is, let's say, a successful logon happening from that IP from outside, it will correlate that that IP has been seen in the previous attack and reported as malicious by that. So again, you get the high level of the threat intelligence, meaning integrating all these live threats data with the CM and the SOC guys doing it. For your information now, as you asked really good questions, now what we will launch very soon is a specific LLM module, so just like ChatGPT, but fully isolated, so it can run directly at your premises, nothing in the cloud. It will analyze the attacks, and then it will help your SOC analyst to understand exactly what the attack is about, what has been happening, and so on.
Hi, thank you for letting me know all this information. I want to know how these cyber attacks are affecting satellite telecommunications nowadays, especially satellite telecommunications.
So the satellite communication is just one layer, one additional layer on that one. As far as I know, there were no specific attack vectors. To be honest, I was a long time ago in satellite communications, so I don't know if there is some specific framing being applied in the satellite communication on that one. But I haven't heard. I will double check. It's a really good idea. For your information, previously what was the problem with satellite communication? It was about using the so-called asymmetric connection, meaning that you get the data using the satellite because it supports high bandwidth, and you are sending using the fiber on that one. This is how you can get much more bandwidth and much more data on that one. That was, with this kind of approach, you can have the problem because of the routing and so on. But with these recent satellites, to be honest, I was not aware of specific attack vectors, but good point, I will check and let me share with our partners if we find anything on that. You can follow.